Hey, this is Grant from Unleash the Archers, and you are watching Richard the Metal Fan.
Hey
Yeah.
everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 91, and today's guest we're talking to Grant Truesdell. Grant is the guitarist for the band Unleash the Archers, and today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal, and what made him want to pick up guitar, and well, a lot more. So, without further ado, let's go talk to Grant.
So what's up, guys? I'm here with Grant from Unleash the Archers. How are you doing today, Grant?
Not bad, man. Not bad. It's morning here. I've got my coffee, so I'm doing pretty good. Good to have you. Good to see you.
Cool. I just had lunch an hour ago, so we're pretty good. So basically, this format is I want to do do a rundown of your catalog as well as your musical journey from where you started to now. But before we go into that, what were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to start playing guitar?
Well, I first got into playing guitar, kind of playing pop punk and kind of new metal as a young teenager. So I was kind of learning like Blink 182 and things like that. But then I came home one day and saw Iron Maiden's Rock and Rio from the Brave New World album on the TV, and I was like, "Oh,
Great
okay,
live show.
yeah, let's just stop everything I've been learning up until now. What is this? Actually, I want to do something like that." So that's when I started to get into heavy metal and continue to explore down the rabbit hole, going over the classics, Metallica and Priest, and then started to get into the heavier stuff with Cannibal Corpse and Carcass and Death, and then really just went nose first and continued down. Kind of grew up still a bit of a punk rocker, right? So I was still listening to a lot of punk and metal at the same time. The place I grew up in, Courtney, BC, had an awesome all ages punk scene. So there was punk shows going on, punk and metal shows, all ages, all throughout my childhood.
It had nothing wrong with that. I grew up with the pop punk stuff like Blink 182, Green Day, Sum 41, shit like that.
Well, I'm sure we're around the same age. So when we are teenagers and starting to get into, any sort of music, that's what was new and relevant and everywhere. So that's kind of what we are, at face value. If you wanted to get into any sort of alternative music, that was what was in front of you. Not like back in the '80s when you had MTV doing all like the hair metal stuff and whatnot. We kind of had Limp Bizkit and Corn and Papa Roach and then all the pop punk was all over the TV. And then like unless you had a cool older brother or like a cool dad or something like that like had all these like cool metal records or something like that, you kind of had to like find it yourself. And that's kind of what I did, and I continued to seek further bands, and got really big into power metal, obviously. So
Yeah. Yeah, and so tell me about like your first band. From what I heard, it was Golgotha, and they formed in 2004. Tell me a little bit about that.
yeah, I wouldn't say that was the very first band. I was in a couple other bands that you probably couldn't find anywhere. We went through a couple different names. It was just me and a couple of buddies from middle school when I was first getting into guitar. Uh, some names were like the Fiasco, Seven Shot. It was more like kind of more pop punk stuff. But then Golgotha was the first band that I had with Andrew, who I still play with these days. So we met at a program called Weekend Warriors. It was put on at a local music store, and you would sign up, and they would pair you up with other young musicians, and you would all learn covers and then play a show at the end of a couple months. So that's where I met Andrew. I was actually in a band with his brother, Cam, and Andrew was in one of the other bands. And we became friends after that. We continued to, after that program was done, we're like, hey, we should like actually start a band type thing. So we started hanging out a lot. This was like, when I was 13, 14, and jamming at Andrew's house. His dad built a little like studio out in the shop that we could jam at. So we were just there like every minute that we could, jamming, playing cover songs, writing our own. And yeah, we had a little bit of success in our like local scene. We won some like talent shows, and we got on the music festival that was put on. It was like more of a folk festival in Courtenay, BC. It happened every year, so we ended up playing that 2 years in a row, I think. Crappy slot, 10 a.m. in the barn type thing on Saturday, but we were like the only metal band there. So
wow.
anyone who was, any of our friends were metals, they were like up at 10 a.m. ready to go. Yeah, and we would play like, we'd open up for bands when they would come and play like an all ages punk show. We'd open up for mainly like punk bands and things like that. But I do remember seeing like 3 Inches of Blood at one of those early shows.
Great
before
band.
they even put out any album. They just had like I remember they had like a Bird CD demo with Sharpie on it with like 3 songs. And so that was like one of the first shows.
Days.
Dude, that was one of the first shows I like ever seen that I really remember, because I was like front row. I mean, this was in a small little youth center with like 50 people in it, but I was like front row, right in front of the guitarist, like just like eating it up. It was so inspiring and so cool.
Yeah, and of course you got Inquisitors in 2008. Tell me about that album.
Oh, March of the Inquisitors. Yeah, that was our first time recording an album. So we were young, dumb, and just excited to have anything recorded. Looking back, the quality of it is not the best, you could say, but we were just excited to get anything recorded. We recorded that all live off the floor, all playing together, no metronome, no click. We just overdubbed vocals and leads. So yeah, we put that out in 2008 as a 4-piece. Andrew and I were doing all the vocals, and we ended up touring quite a bit as Archon Legion. We did some cross Canada tours. We did some like West Coast runs. And that's actually kind of where we met Unleash the Archers, because they were also another band playing in Victoria at the same time. We were the first ones to start kind of touring, and then so we were like, hey, you guys are awesome, you guys should come tour with us. So we ended up touring with UTA quite a bit, and that's kind of when the friendships were formed, so that like later on when Archon Legion ended up breaking up, it was a natural like, hey, like, you guys should just come play for us type thing.
Yeah, I know after you did Archon Legion, you had 2 other bands called Lesbian Fist Magnet and Clown. Tell me about those. Those are some weird fucking names.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Lesbian Fist Magnet, yeah, that was a punk band that I played in Victoria. And at the same time I was doing Archon Legion, I was playing in punk bands. I drummed on an album for a band called The Band, like as in like your band from this interview type thing. I also played drums on a tour for Alcoholic White Trash and guitar on a tour for them. Lesbian Fist Magnet was members of Alcoholic White Trash and myself and a couple other guys, and Ange Trash, who was our vocalist. So yeah, that was a good time, man. That was when I was like living in a punk house. We would throw on shows in our basement, mattresses nailed to the ceilings and the walls, like really ghetto. Put on keg parties, and Striker played our basement once, and it's just like it was good times, man. It was good times.
Awesome.
And then when I moved to Vancouver to join UTA, that's when because this is where Power Clown is from, and it's an Iron Maiden tribute band that dresses up like clowns and plays Iron Maiden, and I was like, how can I say no? Like, Maiden is one of my favorite bands, like case in point here.
They're my favorite band of all time too.
Yeah,
And my
so
blanket in the background.
beautiful, man. So yeah, I started playing with them just for fun, right? Because that's really all it was. We just played really cool gigs. We dressed like clowns. We talked like Andrew Dice Clay, and it was just a spectacle to say the least. Um, so when I moved to Vancouver, I stopped playing with LFM, Lesbian Fist Magnet. Um, and yeah, I was in Vancouver playing with both UTA and Power Clown, and then I was with Power Clown for about 5 years, and then I ended up throwing in the towel there and just focus on one band.
Yeah, and that'd be Unleash the Archers. And then tell me about, like, because I know your first release is the Defy the Skies EP in 2012, which hard to believe it's been 10 years since it's been out. Tell me about like that, your first like recording with the band.
Damn, 10 years. That is wild to think of.
Yeah,
Defy the Skies
the year I
was
graduated high school.
yeah, oh wow. So yeah, Defy the Skies. I came in at the tail end of Demons of the Astro Waste. So I joined the band and they were just finishing that album up. So I ended up recording a couple solos on Demons and toured with the band pretty extensively for that album. And then we wanted to, because of the new edition being myself, and I think Brad was on Defy the Skies too. So we had like two new members, and we knew we were kind of going in a different direction just because of new members. You have different influences coming in, different songwriters. We wanted to do like a bit of an EP to bridge the gap between Demons and the new album. So Defy the Skies was created. um it's not an album or an EP that I think about a lot because we don't really play those songs live anymore, but I am reminded quite often by our online community how much they love those songs, and there are some pretty good songs on that album. We only really toured those songs and albums on a North American tour we did. So we did a tour that was Canada, US, and Mexico, and we drove the whole thing. It was like 2 months long. It was insane. And after that, we started working on Time Stand Still. And once that album came out, I don't think we played any songs from Defy the Skies. So it's kind of like not a lost EP, but it was a transitional piece that maybe we do get requests for like Soul Storm. I think that's a pretty decent song. So
Yeah, you should do like an evening with Unleash the Archers. I know like Machine Head and Dream Theater did like stuff where it's just like you play for like 2-3 hours. I could see it.
yeah, we've been told that, and I would be down for sure. Because you get to a point now, it wasn't a problem until we started to get to like, now we got 5 albums with 2 EPs. So that's, there's no way you're playing every song in one night. And there's always going to be songs that people want to hear that you didn't play, and it's like it's tough to make
The
everyone
Japanese
happy.
B-side exclusive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but tell me about Time Stand Still. This is probably, in my opinion, my favorite Unleash the Archers album. I remember hearing Tonight We Ride, and that pretty much got me hooked on you guys.
Nice. Yeah, that was
just through all the reaction videos.
I think that was the first song I wrote for UTA was Tonight We Ride. So like I said, it was another big transition period in our career was Time Stand Still, because that was the album where Braden, one of the main songwriters of the band for the first 2 albums and EP, he left, right? So I was like, okay, because I was writing songs. I wrote Tonight We Ride and Dream Crusher. Those were the first 2 songs written for that album. And we could, you could kind of tell that Braden was starting to lose interest. He was still involved in those 2 demos, and he still wrote some parts and for it. But he didn't have the same motivation and passion like he did before. He wasn't coming with a bunch of ideas and songs. So when he finally gave us the notice that he was going to leave the band, it was unexpected, but expected as well, because there was a lot of signs leading up to it. So we were then, okay, we got like part of this album written, and now Braden is leaving. So it's like, oh, what do we do? And that's when I was like, okay, I know the man for the job, like my homeboy, Andy King. So we gave Andy the call, and he was ecstatic. He was ready to join. So he came over and continued to write the rest of the album with us. So it ended up being, half and half between him and I writing the music end of things. And this wasn't necessarily a concept album, which is a theme that we adopted with the next album. So this one, it was us kind of trying to find our new sound, right, with a lot of new members, new songwriters. So it's one of those albums that a lot of people hold dear in their heart, obviously yourself included, and myself included too, because that was, to me, that was kind of like the turning point of like the new UTA. I don't think it was our most mature album. It was like a lot of self-discovery, but I think it laid a lot of the foundation to what was to come.
All right. And then your next album, Apex, I love this album. One of my favorites from 2017. Tell me about like that. Did you feel like more comfortable as a songwriter going into Apex?
Oh, dude, yeah. So Apex is, to me, where we kind of really hit our stride and really come into our own. Not a lot of changes member wise from Time Stands Still to Apex, and there was quite a bit of time in between the two. So we had a lot of time to really meld in our chemistry as a unit and as songwriters. And it was the first album of, what we've come to know as the Immortal Saga, which is the 2-part story between Apex and Abyss. So it's, and it's an album that really opened up a lot of doors for us. So, it is one of my favorite albums that we've done. No doubt about it. It was first time working with Jacob Hansen. So it was our first time going somewhere completely remote, focusing on just recording the album. And when we came out of it, the album was done. So I believe that it was the first, it kind of, Apex created the template for us on how we should continue to produce and create albums. The concept idea, it was the first time that we wrote an album that way, where it started with the story. Britt would start with the story of what's going to happen in the story, track by track, and then the music came after, so we knew we had a very clear idea of how the tracks were going to flow, what was going to happen in the story. So it was the first time we wrote an album like that, instead of just writing a bunch of songs and throwing them all in one album. It was really a conscious effort of writing a full album from start to finish as almost like one big long song. So yeah, it just really created that template on how we've continued to now work on albums.
Yeah, and I know in between Apex and Abyss, you also did another EP called Explorers, and it has one of my favorite songs, The Northwest Passage. Tell me about like that little EP.
Yeah, The Northwest Passage was when we were touring 2015 till 2018 type thing. Excuse me. One of our drivers, Mr. G-Tone, the ultimate champ, he was playing Stan Rogers on the bus speakers all the time, and Northwest Passage became like almost a after show like tradition, or just like a driving song tradition. It was like daily that song would be on. We would be arm in arm singing this song. So when it came time to decide on some covers to record, that was like an obvious choice. One, because we enjoy doing covers that like aren't metal already, so you can kind of like spin it and make it completely different, you know, like Northwest Passage, which is originally all a cappella. There's no music at all. So we're like, oh, this sounds like a really cool challenge. Um, and then Heartless World, you know, we wanted to keep the Canadian theme with the EP because Northwest Passage was Stan Rogers from Canada, and then Heartless World was the band Kicks, I think, from from Ontario as well. So
yeah. And then, of course, your latest album, Abyss, one of my favorite albums from 2020. And I just love how both of these albums just go hand in hand. Like they just part
yeah,
one and then part two. So it
yeah,
would be cool if you did like a special live stream where you just play both these albums start to finish because they just connect really well.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, you know, I've often dreamt and fantasized about doing a full Immortal Sega live set where you have like the stage is set up where you have like Apex the mountain on like one side, and that's like where you can kind of come out from, and you have moments in the set where the matriarch is like, you know, hovering over the set like Iron Maiden has Eddie. You could really do like this big theatrical performance of the whole album. You know, and you know, Brittany has written the earbook chapter stories. I don't know if you've gotten those and read those, but you know, she's written a full written story behind both of these albums as well. So yeah, Abyss was, you know, like you said, it was a continuation of Apex, but we wanted it to be very different because it had a different theme. You know, we were no longer on a planet, we were traveling through space. So we really wanted both albums to sound very different. So when we were thinking, how could we do this? You know, it's like what elements can we introduce into Abyss to help with this more spacey sci-fi sound? So one of the things we introduced was keyboards. You know, we had a lot of synth, right? This more kind of sci-fi synthwave type thing. You know, synthwave is something that we all love as well. So we've been listening to a lot of that on tour, and then we added that into the album. And then we also recorded and wrote the album on 7 strings, which just gave it more of a dynamic sound where you can go lower and you can go higher, and you can explore and play in different keys. So yeah, you know, Abyss, we just kind of followed the same template that we laid out in Apex. You know, we started with the story, we knew track by track what was going to happen, and it was just kind of like filling in the missing links. Okay, we're missing this song that needs to be a really heavy one, you know, or this is like a chase scene, you know, like Faster Than Light. The working title before it was Faster Than Light was The Chase, you know. So try to write a song that kind of felt like you were chasing somebody, you know, you were being chased. So
Yeah.
starting with those ideas of what's happening in the story before you even write the song really helps us.
Okay. And lastly, I know like you recently just did some like release a thing where you just did like some acoustic versions of some Apex songs. How did the idea of doing acoustic versions of those come to be?
Well, I guess a few different influences. One, we did a CTV, which is Calgary, like a Calgary news station. They had us in for a segment when we were on tour, and we played a acoustic version of Apex there. So that's where
online.
Yeah, that's where some of the inside jokes and especially the chimes at the end. But you know, because when we did the earbook for Abyss, we released a 7-inch called Abyss Wave, where we had a synthwave version of Abyss, and and another, I think there was another song on that. I can't remember. And then we didn't have an earbook for Apex, and this was something that we just recently put together and released. So we wanted to kind of do something along the same lines of having like a 7-inch with a different version of a song on it, but we didn't just want to do another synth wave. So we did Acoustipex, which is a acoustic version of Apex. And then we also did a synthwave version of False Walls called False Wave. So, it was just something that came out with the earbook, special edition. And I think it turned out really well,
Yeah. Yeah. And just kind of wrapping things up a little bit. I know you're currently working on the next Unleash the Archers album. How far along is the new album?
Well, we plan to record in about 3 months. So we're at the point where we're piecing it all in. We've got maybe 60 to 70% of the foundation written. We've got a few songs that we still need to start. And it slowly gets all built up, but it's coming along, man. It's just following the same template. It's going to be a different universe, a different story, different characters, different theme. It's going to be a lot of the same, but a lot of new things as well, because we can't help but want to keep on creating something new. Right. So I think our fans have come to expect something fresh from us. We're going to stay true to our core sound, but we would get bored putting out the same album time after time. Right. So,
Right. You're not AC/DC.
Yeah, exactly. So, and a lot of it has to do with the story theme. We write the music to fit the theme of the story, right? So, and Britt has come up with an awesome story, another awesome story. So I can't wait to share it with you guys. We should be recording it in March, and which means it'll probably be coming out later 2023.
Yeah, hopefully, because I'm going to see you guys at Prague Power, and I'm looking forward to that.
Nice. Yeah.
Right, that's so cool.
I hope it'll be ready. For then, but no promises.
Yeah.
It's out of our hands. Once we finish recording, we send it off to the label, and then it gets put in the release queue, and who knows. So fingers crossed that we can, we should at least have some singles released by then, and we'll be able to play like some of them live.
Yeah. So before we go, just want to thank you for this interview. So of course now we got 3 members of the Unleashed the Archers. Might hopefully get everybody on at some point, but just thank you so much for your time, man.
Anytime,
really
dude. Anytime. Who do you still need to get? Scott and Nick?
I just need to get Andrew. I already got.
Oh,
him.
yeah.
I just got Brittany, Nick, and now you.
Nice. All right, dude. Yeah, thank you for having me, man. Appreciate you.